In our next lesson, we're going to talk about area of compound shapes. Basically, a compound shape means it's a shape that is going to look irregular, so it's going to actually be made up of other shapes. Our goal is to break it up into shapes that we know, calculate their areas, and then add all the areas together at the end. So there's kind of a couple different ways of showing your work on these, so I'm going to try and give you a couple options here as we go through. So on this first one, you could split this down and have a trapezoid and a little rectangle over here. I'm just going to go ahead and chop off this triangle here. So I'm going to call this part 1, and this will be part 2. So if I'm looking at part 1, it's a triangle. So my formula is 1/2 times base times height. I need to figure out how long is the base and how tall is the height. So to get the base, the whole side here is 12, but 7 gets used up here. So 12 minus 7 gives me 5 for this space. This side is 5. If I bring that over, 5 is here. The whole entire thing is 9, so 9 minus 5 leaves me with 4 for my height. So 1/2 times the base of the triangle times the height of the triangle is going to give me 10. If I looked at my rectangle, I just have length times width. So for number 2, it's just LW, so 12 times 5, which is 60. So my total area is going to be 10 plus 60, which is 70 square centimeters. This next one, you could split it up. You could have 2 trapezoids, or you can split it up to be a triangle, and it looks like actually going to be a square here. So sometimes what I'll do is actually write it out this way. So triangle plus square, I'll call these hieroglyphics. Triangle is going to be 1/2 times base times height. The square is going to be s squared. On my triangle, if I actually turn this, the height would go from here down to the base, which means this is my base, which is 7, because it's a square. This side tells me this whole thing is 11, from this all the way down here. If this up to here is 7, then that leaves me 4 for my height. So in my triangle, I'm 1/2 times 7 times 4, and my square is going to be 7 squared. So 1/2 of 7 times 4 is going to give me 14 plus 49. So I'm going to get 63 square meters here. In the next example, what I have here is, we'll call this 1 and 2. So 1 is actually a semicircle, so it's half of a circle, so we just do 1/2 times pi r squared. What is my radius, though? The first thing I need to realize is this side is 4, so that whole side is 4, which means my radius has to be 2. So 1/2 times pi times 2 squared. 1/2 times 2 squared, this will be 4, so 2 pi, which is going to be about 6.28. And for part 2, this is just length times width, so 4 times 8, which is 32. So to get my total area, I have 32 plus 6.28, which is going to be 38.28 square meters. The next example wants us to calculate the area of the shaded part, which are these 4 pieces. Now, this is the center here, which means that this part right here is 4, and that part's 4, and if that, think about a circle. If we were to kind of fill in the rest of it, that 4 would actually be the radius. Now, if you think about it, that's 1/4 of the circle. These are all, this would fill in right here, this would fill in here, that would fill in here. So these 4 parts are actually all going to be equal to each other. So this is really just a circle, pi r squared, and the radius is 4. So this is 16 pi, which is approximately 50.24 centimeters squared. The next one, this one is irregular. It's a little bit different though, because if you kind of imagine this was here, you would really have the rectangle, and you would take out that little fraction of the circle. Now if you think about what part of the circle that is, wouldn't it be 1/4? So the area of it is going to be 1/4 pi r squared. So this will just be your length times your width. So look at your rectangle, 12 times 10 minus 1/4 pi. We need to figure out the radius. So I'm looking at this side as 10. If I come across here, this side is 6 is used up, which leaves me this to be 4. That would go from the center to the outside, so that's actually the radius then. This is 120 minus 1/4 times 4 squared is going to give me 4 pi. And I actually want a decimal answer here, so I'm going to do 4 times 3.14, which is 12.56. And I'm going to do 120 minus 12.56, and I'm going to get 107.44 square centimeters. In the next one, we have a scale drawing, and we're actually looking for the area. So if I look, my scale is 1/2 centimeter is 2 kilometers. What if I doubled this? Wouldn't that be 1 centimeter? And I double that, that would be 4 kilometers. That's going to make my life a lot easier up here. So every 1 centimeter is 4 kilometers. So 10 centimeters would be 40 kilometers. 6 centimeters would be 24 kilometers. 24 kilometers. 12 times 4 would be 48 kilometers. And 14 times 4 is going to give me 56 kilometers. Same thing, kind of like how we started. Let's split this up. So we have the triangle and we have our rectangle. So for part 1, I'm going to have 1/2 times base times height. For part 2, I'm going to have length times width. So in my part 2, that's kind of the easiest. That's going to be 48 times 24. And go back to my triangle now. This whole side is 48. 24 gets used, that means my base here is 24. Whole side is 56, 24 gets used. You're going to be left with 56 minus 24 is 32 up here, so your height is 32. So what's 1/2 times 24 times 32? You get 384, and 48 times 24 is going to give you 1,152. So your total area is going to be, adding these two together, you're going to get 1,536 square